That makes sense. You know what's tricky right now? Tim Tebow situation. It's always a hot topic. Yesterday, wide receiver Demaryius Thomas, who used to play, of course, with Tim Tebow in Denver, went on the 2 Live Stews radio show in Atlanta and had some interesting things to say about Mr. Tebow. Take a listen.
It's a business decision.
It's to keep it real short.
I ain't gonna say I was sad, because only thing they remember is that pass. You got to go back and look at the rest of the games. I wasn't getting no balls, and you had to make some of these plays, some players open and he's not making the throw. But, I don't want to talk bad about Tim, but, hey, I'm happy that we got paid everything on ESPN and all this, all about Tim. So, that bothers some players, too, because you know how they used to say Tim Tebow time.
Right.
I felt like it was a team thing, because if it wasn't for the defense most of the time, it wouldn't be no...
That's what I've been saying.
Tim Tebow time.
That was Doug and Ryan, and he doesn't want to talk bad about him, but he did. Skip, what do you make of this?
I make of it that about a month or so ago, I was filling in for Mike Greenberg on Mike and Mike with Mike Golick, and we also had Demaryius on. Were you on the show, I think, following that?
Yeah, I was. I remember that.
And Demaryius wasn't nearly this strong. He was pretty strong in what he wouldn't say about Tim Tebow. No love, no parting gifts, no I'm going to miss Tim at all. And I want to remind everyone that Demaryius Thomas was the higher pick in the Tim Tebow draft. And he was a flat-out bust his first year in Denver.
Here we go. Let's rip on Thomas because...
No, well, let's just talk the truth.
He was talking the truth.
In Denver, if you ask Bronco fans a year ago, we made a big mistake on Demaryius Thomas. And then later in the year, he blew out his Achilles. So, ironically, he returned from said Achilles rupture just as Tebow took over at Miami. And I can make the case that Tebow saved or rejuvenated, at least, Demaryius' career. Because at Minnesota, he had his coming out party. And guess what? Tim Tebow had to outscore Christian Ponder's offense, which put up 32 points at Minnesota. Let me finish. 35-32 Tebow. And in that game, he hit Demaryius 4 times for 144 and 2 huge third-quarter touchdowns that got them back in the game. And that just set them off on one of the best wavelengths in the NFL for about a 6-game run there. I'm leaving out a couple, but in that run, Demaryius averaged catching 5.3 a game for 118.5. Against the Pittsburgh Steelers, he caught 4 for 204, including, of course, the famous game winner in overtime. And it's just game after game, 7 for 78, 7 for 116. They had rapport that nobody else on the team had. I don't get it.
Yes, you do get it.
Give the defense credit. You mean the 20th ranked out of 32 teams defense?
You get it.
Really? I don't get it at all. I'm offended, and I'll bet you Tim Tebow's offended by this.
But the thing I don't get is you could talk about all those stats and all those numbers and how many games they won and the playoff win, and still we all know John Elway and John Fox weren't buying it. We know that there are guys in that locker room like Thomas there and other guys who saw the entire game, and I know Tebow was able to make some plays and they won some games. You could do whatever you want.
Just a few, 20 or 30 points.
Whatever it was,
yeah,
and you know what? But it still comes down to it that here's a guy who did have some success with him, and even he is honest enough to say, this guy isn't the guy. He's not the guy, no matter what ESPN says, no matter what Skip Bayless says, no matter how many times they put the camera on Tim Tebow after the defense has held the team, and then he makes a play at the end, or a kicker kicks a 75-yard field goal, I'm exaggerating, to tie a game or win a game or whatever it is, they all know, and Skip, you can't discount the guys who play with him, who are there every day, and he even said missed plays on the field prior to that were open, and that's what they see, and that's why he's being honest. I don't think this is ill will. He made a big catch with Tebow to win a playoff game, and yet he doesn't even have anything to say that's so great about Tim Tebow.
If I'm Peyton Manning, I'm scared to death of this potential diva I have on my hands right now, because his anger is so misdirected and so...
Did you feel that was anger?
Listen, yes.
Anger?
Yes. You have no reason to be critical of a guy who's gone.
It's called the truth. You're being interviewed.
What's the truth? It's those numbers that Skip just threw out to you. Because, look, and everybody, I mean, I know
You went to
people
the
here. I
University
went to the University of Florida, and I'm not even close to as high on Tim Tebow as Skip is.
Well, in fact, I'll help you out. You're really not that high on Tim.
I'm not very high on him as a starting quarterback at all. I don't think he'll ever be able to fix his mechanics problem. Won't be able to ever throw a proper spiral.
Okay,
but he's got no reason to say that I didn't catch no balls. Yeah, you did. The numbers show that you did. You had a great playoff game, a breakout playoff game, which is what sets guys' careers off. And here you are complaining about earlier because the guy who's getting his first stretch of starts and the offense has entirely changed wasn't getting you the ball. Come on,
Yeah,
man.
but also you got to remember, come on, Tim Tebow was able to make a 10-yard pass there because Dick LeBeau had so little respect for him. They played 11 guys up on the line of scrimmage. That wasn't, all he's saying is what do you get in that game? 4 passes?
204.
Okay, I got the 204, but he got 4 passes, and all he's saying is that with a real quarterback, with Peyton Manning, that's what I'm salivating about. That's what I'm salivating, is being able to catch a ball from a real quarterback who's not going to miss when guys are open and not going to miss throws. That's what he's saying. It's honest.
Right. If you want to praise Peyton Manning, fine, praise Peyton Manning. But don't go off on the guy saying, and then outing him and saying, oh, in practice or in film sessions, they kept saying, Tim, you got to make that throw. Tim, you got to make that throw. Pretty sure they probably had some critical things to say of Demaryius Thomas's first couple of years in film sessions. Here's the other part, okay? When he sits there, and when we talk about his misguided anger or misdirected anger,
I didn't feel angry at that at all. I'm sorry.
I didn't really? You don't think he was angry when he says, man, some of the players didn't like that stuff because everybody said it was Tebow time.
But that's not anger to me. He's just giving you an insight. I'm listening to that as insight. If I'm on that team and everything is about Tim Tebow, even when I can't remember the kicker who made the long field goal. But when he made that, if you go back and look at the video and you can pull it, right after he makes that big field goal, the camera goes straight to Tebow.
But that's not Tim Tebow's fault.
Tim Tebow ever say
I'm
it was
not
about
saying that. But I'm saying
the ultimate teammate.
That's not what I'm saying.
So why is Demaryius Thomas going off about? If you want to say, well, I was unhappy with the media's coverage of us, then say that.
But
because what he's doing is calling out Tim for every little thing that he's not great at or that other people are responsible for.
I thought this was an honest. I thought he was just being really honest on a radio show with guys.
Only because he said what you wanted to hear.
No, that's not true, Skip. Not at all.
Yes, it is.
He was comfortable with the stews, and he was honest. It was just honest.
He was honest. He was showing his true colors. I'll tell you that. And
well, whatever they are.
Rob,
I'm just saying.
Let's boil it down to this. The Denver Broncos were 7-24 in their previous 31 games. That was the worst stretch in the NFL. They
Are
were
you sure about that?
I know it is. I know it is. Yeah, that's
Don't
fact.
make me say it. Don't make me say it.
Okay. 1-4 when Tebow takes over. What was the biggest change to win 7 of the next 8 and to go 8-5 the rest of the year? What was the single biggest change at that point?
Quarterback.
Is there any doubt about it? Is there any argument?
But Skip, you could go through, and I know. Look, you're a Tebow guy, and you will gloss over everything.
No, you're glossing over the wins and losses.
You will gloss over. You don't want to take ownership of when they needed to win those last 3 games to get in the playoffs. They backed into the playoffs. He had a stinker at the last game of the season.
I always say that. That was the worst game by far.
And a game that they had
so that
to
was
win.
one game.
So there was a chance that they didn't even make the playoffs. And any other coach,
Wait, who won the AFC West?
Other than Dick
Help me
LeBeau
out.
would have
Please.
been fired for that.
Help me out. Who won the AFC West? The Broncos.
You really want to
Wait,
celebrate that? You really want to celebrate the AFC West?
Wait a second. Who swept the AFC West on the road?
Skip.
Not easy to do.
You want to talk about
Any other coach would have been fired. Defensive coordinator who allowed Tim Tebow to do what he did in that game.
Who were the leaders? Who were the leaders on this team? Defensively, you could say Champ Bailey and Von Miller, right? Those guys were probably better voices for this team than Demaryius Thomas. Those guys praise Tebow even now, and they still think he's going to be a starting quarterback down the road.
So why isn't he a starter? Wait a minute, Israel. Look,
Yeah.
you sold Tim Tebow what he did. Yet this guy doesn't even have why doesn't he have a job as a starting quarterback in the NFL?
He does.
No, he does not.
He does.
No, he does not.
Book
That's
it.
what you're hoping
Book it.
for.
He just got one.
Tell me. He did all these great things that you just talked about. How come he doesn't have a job in the league?
He doesn't.
A job in the league?
As a starting quarterback. Why?
Watch what happens. Just watch.
No, tell me, Skip.
He's
you just
going
told
to.
me, you gave me all the numbers, what he did. How come he's not a starting quarterback next year?
He's going to be the Jets starting
not
quarterback.
going to be. How come he's not?
How come Demaryius Thomas didn't have breakout games with Kyle?
That's not what we're talking about. I'm asking.
Exactly
No, we're talking about
Demaryius
Tebow.
Thomas's
He was
comments.
being honest, and that's why That's why the Broncos made the move. Of course, they would. If it wasn't Peyton Manning, they would have got somebody else. Tim Tebow was not going to be the starting quarterback because they don't believe in him, and he had a lot of things. The moon and the stars aligned for him last year, and all these
So
things
will the
worked
Broncos
out.
be better with Peyton Manning next year?
Will they be better? They'll be about the same.
About the same? Well, then what's the
That just
point?
throws out your
No, it
entire
doesn't.
point.
No, it doesn't because
Wait a second. He thinks Peyton can't play.
Right, I'm not
Okay, so you're back into a
You're saying you're blaming him for their flaws, and yet you're saying that arguably the best quarterback ever isn't going to make them any better.
Nobody's coming off 4 neck surgeries.
Okay.
It's a different story. He hasn't played in a year
Oh, why didn't you hang on to Tebow then?
because he's no good. That's
Oh, so
why.
you'd rather have broken down Peyton Manning?
Well,
Who
you know
won?
what? John Elway and John Fox would.
When in doubt, start talking about Tim
Sorry,
Tebow.
I can't take it.
It's Friday, so